Welcome everyone as Expedition Zero is brought to bear. First-person survival horror game with some pretty in-depth crafting mechanics. It definitely has a lot to offer, so let's go ahead and start this up. Or at least that's what we would be doing if the game didn't perpetually keep crashing. In fact, I've put off this review for a darn long time in the hopes that eventually the dev team would be able to fix this up and get it all working properly. However, as you can see, that hasn't happened yet. Oh my god, twice in a row. Though I will note if we go into our settings, we do have the ability to tailor certain things, including anti-aliasing, textures, post-processing, with honestly not much of this making that much of a difference, particularly as we have low, medium, high, epic, and cinematic. And having shifted this around within the low, medium, high range, I can honestly say it's made no difference to the performance of the game. I'm still having texture pop-ins, there are still a lot of issues with clipping, though with all that said, when the game works, when it loads in, when things are not falling through each other, it looks pretty darn good, with a clear, ominous presence, and one that genuinely fits the tone of this northern expedition. Take that for the massively qualified statement it is. One thing I will note is just at the bottom there is head bob amount. Now, I haven't felt too bad playing this, though I have heard from a few that it's made them feel a little sick, so do have a little work through this if you are starting to have any troubles with it. But flicking on, we have our audio, our controls, alongside the note that we do have gamepad compatibility, as well as multiple languages available to us. It's all pretty standard fare, it's just a little disappointing that going into those video settings, we weren't really able to help our performance out by going through any of them. With all that done, let's go ahead and start up a game and let's see how Expedition works. Fingers crossed it actually loads this time. For the love of God. So here we are in the game, and straight away we found ourselves in a little basement getting attacked. And now we're dead. How did we spawn with an enemy literally right next to us? And then the game crashed. Oh my god, we spawned, got killed, and then the game crashes on the reload. That is brilliant. Well, in the interest of keeping my sanity, I've basically decided that I'm just going to play as much as I can of this game without worrying about talking about any of it, pure and simply because every time the game crashed, it just threw me off. And yeah, here we are. And so instead, I'm going to be talking after the fact, and you can enjoy some of the gameplay in the background. So in starting again, we'll ask, just what is Expedition Zero? A survival horror game with a grim dark art style with a major emphasis on dark. The lighting in this game is very much of your horror standard. You're going to be using your flashlight a ton, and when you run out, well, actually it causes a lot more issues than just not being able to see where you're going, as your ability to maintain your batteries can also have a knock-on effect towards your ability to keep warm. Something that should become rather important as we go along, given how we find ourselves alone in the dark and traversing a frozen forest. Now, this review has been an extremely long time in the making, and the reason is that initially I was provided early access to the game. However, there were a lot, and I mean a lot, of teething issues. So I gave it some time, let some of those patches come out, and just kept my eye on things, trying to bring this up over onto stream where possible. Of course, if you watched over on Twitch as we tried this out, then you'll know that within about 10-20 minutes, the game crashed. And in fact, the game has continued to crash thereafter. It's almost been random when I've actually been able to get on and play this game. Now, that's definitely not something you want to see, even in early access, though the game has now been fully released. And as such, I'm judging it as a full release. And for that, I have to say there are just too many bugs and too many performance issues with Expedition Zero, to the point where even though this is an extremely short game, we are talking top end first time through probably about 7 or 8 hours, though in reality you can complete this fairly easily once you've figured out how the game works in about 3 or 4. And I'd imagine most people are going to be hitting that 4-hour mark so long as they're not spending half their time crying and screaming to chat. Though I have to say, this game doesn't really play like Twitch bait. It's less built on those jump scares, thank God, because the AI is absolutely atrocious and they're more likely to get you simply by you forgetting that if your weapon's drawn, you can't walk backwards. And the methodical nature of your movements really do well to bring back the old idea of the tank control, the sluggish character, where the player is not only fighting against the world and the enemies in it, but also the controls themselves, leading to the development of better skills in how you maneuver yourself, getting around enemies and saving resources by avoiding combat. That, and I think it just brings back bad memories of really old Resident Evil games. But interesting design choice put aside, let's have a look at just what Expedition Zero is, how it plays, and whether or not it can redeem itself from the sheer amount of performance trouble. There are some things that Expedition Zero does extremely well. I would say this is one of the better survival games I've played, purely down to the fact that maintaining your equipment, maintaining your resources is not as taxing as it is in other games. There's still a challenge there, and if you want to venture further into the woods, venture further afield in the map, you're going to need to plan out your route. You're going to need to consider, where can I get wood? And where can I find somewhere to light it? You'll need this in order to keep yourself nice and toasty. Alongside, where can I get electricity? Your battery pack is probably the most important resource in the entire game. Not only can you use it to fuel things to maintain your heat, but it's also necessary for the flashlight, something that you're going to need to use constantly throughout the game. Make no mistakes, this is extremely dark, and I can't blame them at all because it adds to the atmosphere, something that I would say Expedition Zero excels at. Throughout the short campaign, you are going to feel like you're out on an expedition, you're alone against the environment. And the constant sounds and footsteps of things around you, combined with the fact you're in a dark and dangerous wood, something that is always scary, does create that feeling of claustrophobia and foreboding that really every horror game needs. Combine this with the nature of the crafting elements, going out and collecting new things to break down and then build into new items, all coming into three basic components: polymer, electrical, and metal. Between those three, you have everything you need to upgrade your equipment, or build entirely new stuff as you go. And considering that you can only build these when you find the stations, the printers that give you access to their blueprints, is a great way to ensure the player is going out and exploring, finding these new areas and putting themselves in danger to try and get a leg up on the environment. It felt more like the environment was the trouble rather than any of the enemies I came across, which takes us to some of the negatives. The enemy AI is absolutely abysmal. For starters, there's zombies. Now, these zombies, I'm not going to deny, work fairly well. They pretty much do exactly what you'd expect a zombie to do. They stand around doing nothing until they notice you, and then they just pursue you and smack you with whatever weapon they have, dealing a fair amount of damage as well. It only takes a few swings and you're gone. But considering the game just cuts to black and shows you a little skull and crossbones, it kind of pulls all the suspense out. You know you're not going to have to worry too much. If you get knocked out, you just reload your last save. There's nothing particularly scary about them attacking you, so all of the tension just gets removed almost instantly. Combine this with the fact that, yeah, fair enough, you can go in there and take them on in melee, but a few hits from your bolt action and once more they're gone, but also the fact that the body disappears really pulls you out of the immersion. Not to mention denying you the potential to check out what they look like. And yeah, fair play, the fear of the unknown is the greatest fear of all, but if I've just slain a zombie, yeah, I want to go check out what it looks like. But personal addendum, disappearing bodies in games it's just bad. It looks weird, it looks lazy. But the zombies aren't the only thing you're going to be up against. There are also some ghosts. These black, shrouded, and I don't even know what to call them. These enemies will hang around in the trees and drop gas on you, or even go in for some direct damage, basically being a one-shot kill. And considering that they're hanging around high up in the trees, somewhere that you'll tend not to be looking at, they're definitely an annoying foe to deal with. And once more, if they're going to take you out very, very quickly, and then the screen just fades to black and reload, it comes back to the idea of that build-up just being for nothing. You're not really getting anything from that death, and so the tension once there is just completely gone and wasted on the rest of the game. Meaning the more and more you play, less and less you care about maintaining your health, and the more willing you are to just give it a go, run forward, see what happens, and oh, you're dead. Fair enough, moving on. But it is also in these enemies that we see some of the most hilarious of bugs. And I've got to say, I'm quite fortunate. I've only come across them a few times, as in looking on the forums for any fixes for this game or any tricks I could use to try and improve performance, I was also able to find a lot of reviews for it. And it seems like a fair few people are complaining that they're just not fun to deal with, often pursuing you beyond what seems reasonable. But from my personal point of view, they're just kind of hilarious. They glitch in, get stuck in a tree, and then you watch them for a while, maybe even throw a pot shot here and there, until eventually they unglitch themselves, scare the living heck out of you, and then you just load the next save. Which I have to say, in other genres, they could probably get away with it, but this is a horror game. I'm supposed to be scared, not amused. Now, as I said, I haven't come across this enemy too often, and I feel it's more just because I haven't been looking around, as I've definitely lost health in places and had no idea why. So I suppose I should really be thankful to the bugs for meaning that it couldn't actually attack me. And the bugs don't just end there. You're also going to have bugs in regards to your equipment, with certain improvements arbitrarily being shut off when you load up a save. And I swear, hands down, that if you took out an enemy near to where you saved and then reload it, the enemy will respawn, as I've been taken out multiple times seconds after loading a save. Meaning, yes, I was literally defeated before the environment had finished popping in their textures. Now the thing is, a lot of these issues coming in from the performance, coming in from glitches and bugs, they're all things that you would expect from an early access game. There's something that I even forgave for it being an early access game initially. Expedition Zero has officially released. As I said, it has to be judged from the merit of a fully released game. And not only are you then saying that this is the top quality, ready to go, final production, full of bugs and full of performance issues, but also incredibly short. And honestly, ending on almost a cliffhanger, which just has me thinking, this is a prequel. This is Expedition Zero, and therefore Expedition 1 coming soon? It's just a very strange choice that they decided to fully release. And it's one that I really can't condone, particularly as I said, there are a lot of good ideas in here. It follows the basic Slender Man formula. You're walking around an environment and coming across an enemy that is slowly stalking you, getting more and more used to it appearing as you progress further and further into the story. You're going to be moving around different parts of the map, using all the resources and equipment that you're printing as you do to allow you to move further and further each time and really explore the world and the story they've developed, as I have to say, it's a pretty intriguing story. I genuinely want to know more about this world. Why is this anomaly here? Why did they build a wall around it? And plug your ears if you don't want spoilers, but what the hell has happened to us? And the methodical nature of your movements really do well to bring back the old idea of the tank control, the sluggish character, where the player is not only fighting against the world and the enemies in it, but also the controls themselves, leading to the development of better skills in how you maneuver yourself, getting around enemies and saving resources by avoiding combat. Though I do have to say, in terms of its survival mechanics, there are a lot of different ways to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself warm, and to refill your batteries, meaning that after even a small bit of playtime, about an hour or so, you're gonna be pretty comfortable in knowing where to go to refill. Not to mention, ammunition is rather plentiful, and the unchecked ability to save as much as you want just keeps the mid to late game from, as I said before, having that tension. The game builds up well, and it really shines right at the beginning, but very quickly the scales are lifted from your eyes and you realize you're only gonna cop it if you mess up or if you run into a certain foe. So just how do we summarize all of that? Expedition Zero is a very interesting game and something that does have the potential to be a pretty darn good horror game. Unfortunately, it is not there yet. Aside from the bugs, aside from the performance issues, there's still the issue that the game is a bit too lenient towards you. It doesn't punish you enough for what you do, nor does it make it too much of a struggle when considering, do I keep this material? Do I build this upgrade now and use up my resources, or save them to build something better later? And if I have to be honest, you spend a lot of time staring at a scanner, where it feels almost more beneficial to just stick a pointer on the map. And I know what you're thinking, I hate myself for saying that, but all you need to do is put a large circle in this area because it serves the exact same purpose. Granted, you have the argument that you're slowed down and unable to use your weapons while you have your scanner out, but the map also obscures your vision. You still have to remove the map in order to fight anything that comes at you, not to mention, you're not going to see them coming at you. In fact, I would actually argue the map provides you with much more of a challenge getting through the game and relying upon the beeping scanner. And if you haven't guessed it, that beeping is really annoying. But the true issue, and the real problem I have with this, is the fact that the game came out of early access with all these issues still present. Early access is there for you to build your game and keep working on it while you're making an income. That's not what a full release is for. The game should be ready and up to go. Fair enough, a few bugs here and there, you're only human, but it shouldn't be in this state upon a full release, particularly when you've had early access prior. So does Expedition Zero get barely approved? No, not at all. Once this game has had a lot more patches put into it, it may well be worth picking it up on a sale. And I say that because the game is interesting, and if you're into horror games, particularly of this style, you could well enjoy it. Unfortunately, it's really short. In fact, the main reason it's taken me so long to get anywhere in this game is just the fact that it keeps crashing. If it didn't, I'm pretty sure I probably would have finished it by now. It's just the fact that it keeps crashing. Perhaps in time when those patches come in, it'll be worth having a budge. But I can definitely say the team is worth looking at, if for no other reason than if there is ever an Expedition 0, 2 or 1, I'm honestly not sure what you would call it, that could well be a damn good game. This is a prequel, the story is short and doesn't really lead anywhere, it just leads up to something. And I may just be being over optimistic in assuming that game developers want their games to be amazing and they're going to work their ass off to get this as good as possible in preparation for the new game to come. But it is what I'd like to think, and it's what I'd like to see from them. The performance issues removed, the game smoothed out, and with a much further developed story that we can really sink our teeth into. But for now, for me, this is one that I'm happy not to come back to. But there we are, Expedition Zero brought to bear. So until next time, as always, peace out.